everyone, my name's Tina and you can typically find me on YouTube where I post videos on home decor and DIY projects every week. But today I've partnered up with the Home Depot to show you guys how to create a really simple rope shelf. This is a great project, especially if you're a beginner to woodworking. You can find everything for this project at Home Depot, and here are the tools and materials you'll need. So for the space that I'm creating these shelves for, I'm measuring the width across the small section of my living room, and I'm making sure that I have ample space on both sides. So next I'm measuring and marking off my board into 22-inch long sections, and I'm just marking a line here for my first shelf. I'm also going to measure and mark the dowel off at 1.5 inches to be used as height adjusters in the rope. And in total we'll be making 8 of these. Now with a circular saw or a miter saw, we're going to cut along the marks that we just made. And you just want to do a straight cut down that line, taking it nice and slow. And when you're cutting wood, don't forget to take safety precautions like protecting your eyes. So now we have our first cut, and since my blade is a bit on the smaller side, it doesn't cut completely through the wood. So what I'm doing is just flipping it over to match my first cut, and now we have our first shelf. So what I like to do is to measure and cut as I go so that I get really precise cuts. This is really important, especially since some of the wood is going to get eaten up as you cut it. So this is going to be the best way to get our shelves nice and even. And I'm basically going to repeat this process with the dowels as well, just cutting them one at a time and measuring them out as I go. Alright, so now that everything's cut, it is time to get to sanding everything. So I'm working from 80 grit sandpaper, which is very coarse, to a fine grit sandpaper right onto the edge. And if you find that you need to go onto the surfaces and sand that down, you can go ahead and use a finer grit sandpaper to do that. But as a tip, if you want cleaner looking shelves that require little to no sanding, you can also use appearance boards. Alright, and now comes the fun part, which is to stain or paint our shelves. And when staining, you want to make sure that you're going in small circular motions and using an interior wood stain for the best finish. And depending on how rich you want the color, you can definitely do more than one coat for this step. I think that this color is perfect since the rest of my decor is pretty light, but you can always go for a darker stain in a walnut finish, or you can also choose to paint the shelves, which I think will give it such a transformation. So after your paint has dried, you can go ahead and seal it, and here I'm using a water-based polyurethane, and I'm going to go ahead and let them sit and dry thoroughly before we start assembling everything together. Now we're ready to move on to the next step, so for each one of the 3 shelves, I'm measuring and marking 1 inch from all 4 corners. So to mark them, we're going to make these little crosses, and this is where we're going to feed our rope through. Now with the 1/2 inch spade drill bit, we're going to go ahead and drill the holes through all of the boards at the corner marks. So now we're ready to build our shelves and assemble everything together, so I'm going to go ahead and tie a knot at one end of both of the rope pieces. You want to make sure that this is very secure, so make sure that you knot it tightly. Now using the unknotted end of both of the ropes, I'm going to thread that rope through the front left hole of all 3 shelves. And as you'll see, I'm going to start from beneath the bottom of the shelf. Now once you get to the top shelf, you're going to go ahead and cross that rope over and thread it through the back right hole of all 3 shelves. And make sure to leave plenty of slack at the top for hanging. So now we're just going to repeat that on the other side of the board and threading the second rope through the front right hole of all 3 shelves. And again, once we get to the top, we're going to go back down through the back left hole of all the shelves. And as we're doing this, you'll notice that you get this really nice crisscross at the top of the rope shelf. And pro tip here, make sure that you wrap the tape around the unknotted end of both of the ropes for easier threading through the holes. Before tying off the rope and knots beneath the bottom shelf, make sure that the slack at the top is going to be the same for both sections. So now I'm taking my dowel pieces and I'm going to pierce them in between the strands of rope to create the top 2 shelves. This is going to hold our shelves securely in place, and you can space them however you'd like. I'm making these ones even throughout from the top to bottom. So as you can see behind me, we just hung up our shelves and I think it looks amazing. I just use a command hook, which is a great alternative, especially if you're a renter. But of course, you can use any hook that you would like to match your personal style. I just went with a white one just so that it would match with my walls. So here's how our shelf is looking all hung up. I think it adds so much height and style to this room. I love the natural elements that it brings in, and I'm so proud of how it came out.